So here we go. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know, oh, he holds the future, and the life is worth a living just because he lives. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Warren McPherson, and this is where we learn gospel piano by ear. In today's video, we're going to talk about diminished chords and the secrets that they hold. If you want to be able to add more gospel piano flair to your playing, then the diminished chord is going to be your best friend in that process. And so using the hymn, Because He Lives, in today's video, I'm going to demonstrate a whole variety of places where I can use diminished chords. But also stick around to the end. I'm going to also give you tips and tricks about all the things that I'm going to demonstrate in this video today. So stick around. All right, welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about diminished chord. And diminished chord is one of the core triad chords of music. We got 5 of them: major, minor, diminished, augmented, and the suspension. 5 triads, but today we're focusing on diminished. And the easiest way to think about a diminished chord is just the stacked minor thirds, bunch of stacked minor thirds, right? So for example, C to E flat is a minor third. Now you might say, Warren, how do you know that's a minor third? Because it comprises of 3 half steps, right? And the way you count half steps, you step, then you count. So from C, I would say 1 half step, 2 half step, 3 half step. And there we go. So whenever you count 3 half steps in the piano, you get a minor third. And then by stacking those minor thirds, you get a diminished chord. So I'm going to play another minor third on top of that. I get a diminished triad. And if I add another minor third on top of that, we get what is known as the fully diminished chord, or diminished 7th, right? It has this sort of symmetric feel to it because it's all minor thirds right around, which means every time you play it in an inversion, you get another form of diminished chord, right? Now that you know what a diminished chord is and how to build them, now I'm going to show you how to use them in some cool ways. Now, one cool way you can use the diminished chord is as a dominant 7 flat 9. Yeah, I know, sounds like a big chord, but really, this is what it is. If I play, for example, G, right? Say a G octave in the left hand. You go down a half step, which is a full step, actually a whole step, to the F, and just build a diminished chord right there. You can play it up here, or you can play it right here. And now you have a dominant 7 flat 9 chord. This is the G7 flat 9. So I'm not thinking about all the different intervals that need to be altered and lowered. I'm just thinking intervals that are a whole step apart. These are a whole step apart, right? So I play G, and the note that's a whole step below that, just build a diminished chord on it, a diminished 7 that is, right? And you get a dominant 7 flat 9. Same thing. I come up to to C, and a whole step below that is B flat. So if I build a diminished chord there, I get a dominant 7 flat 9. And this is such a powerful chord that is used extensively in gospel to give you that bluesy, gospel, jazzy feel. Now let's talk about some places how you can use that. I'm going to demonstrate with the song Because He Lives. I'm going to jump to the key of D flat. First, I'm going to play the song through so you hear it in its entirety and in context. And then I go back and talk about the places where I use diminished chord. So here we go. Because He lives, I can face tomorrow. Because He lives, all fear is gone. 'cause I know only holds the future, and the life is worth a living just because he lives. Fun, right? You hear all of those chord movements that I just add in there? This is definitely more advanced than the hymnal version. I definitely add some reharm in there because I want to show you how I'm utilizing diminished chords. Were you able to see the spots that I use diminished chord? Let's go back and talk about it. So we're in the key of D flat, right? Hopefully you're familiar with all the chords in D flat. So the first thing I start on is my 5. Because, and I'm playing this 4 over 5 right here, right? So in my right hand, I got this sort of a G flat major, and then I'm playing A flat and the left hand, and that gives you that nice sus. But I didn't stop there. Then I drop. What is this? See the chord I just talked about? Diminished chord. You have a root note, you go down a whole step, you play a diminished chord. That's what I'm playing there. I just have the chord divided between the hands, so it's easier. So, because he, and I'm keeping that melody on the top. Then we have some nice things going here. Yes, I can face tomorrow. And if you're wondering, Warren, slow down. I want to see those additional chords. I'm going to talk about those towards the end. But now I just want to show you where all I'm hitting those, the spots where I'm hitting those diminished chords, right? Tomorrow, right here. So when I'm on that 4 on tomorrow, instead of just staying on the 4, I know I can go up to this G diminished 7 chord. Right? Ridiculous is playing something funny on the screen. Minor 6, sharp 11. No, it's just a G diminished chord. Anyway. Now, the reason why I know I could use a diminished chord here because the melody note doesn't change, right? You can face tomorrow. So it's a part of the chord, which makes it perfect, right? Then the melody goes, because he lives. So I said, what if I could slip some more diminished chords in there? So I said, I drop back down a half step to this diminished chord. Because then the melody comes down, so it's a part of the chord. So all I did is invert it to the E. So it's the same diminished chord. Remember we talked about there's only 4 diminished chords, so there's going to be inversions of each other. So because he lives, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm voicing that, keeping the melody on the top. Because he lives, because he lives. And just playing a single note in that left hand. You catch that? Let me do it one more time for you. Here we go. Da, 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 da. And that takes me to my 3, my minor 7. I know that was my destination all along, so that's why the E diminished works nicely going to that chord, because we know we can use diminished chromatic passing to get to any chord. And I know you might say, what is that? That's for another video. I've covered that in previous videos, and I've also covered that in depth in my program over at pianolessonwithwarren.com. So you can check that out. So now we have We Live. And those are just some movements in 6. All fear is gone. And I'm playing this little run. I'll talk about that later in the video. And it drops me to my 5. So it's my flat 7, right? My B major 7 with this run over it. And that resolved nicely to 5 sus. And we'll talk about that 4 chord with the 5 in the bass line. Then I go, because I'm playing this as a diminished again, and I'm using it as a passing to get to my 1 in first inversion. Because I know minor 5, he holds 1, and I'm doing some tritone substitution passing, and I'll talk more about that towards the end. The future, sure. Then I come back this time to my flat 7. This time I'm playing the dominant 7, so B dominant 7, and we can also play the scale over it. We'll talk about all of those things in the end, right? Life is worth a living. Here's another diminish. Same chord, remember? Root, go down a whole step, play a diminished chord. So this is my 6 as a dominant 7 flat 9. Life is worth. Or actually, I did. Life is worth. And I'll talk about the theory behind those chords. I'll live in just because another diminished chord, same chord. He lives. So you see how I'm using that dominant 7 flat 9th, but I'm really thinking about it as a diminished chord. It's a dominant 7 flat 9th, but the way I think about it makes it conceptually easier to process and also easier to quickly identify on the keyboard. I don't have to be thinking about voicing because you notice I'm using the same chord voicing everywhere. I play that flat 9 chord. Root, diminished chord. Right? Root, diminished chord. Everywhere I use it. And then other places I might just be playing a straight diminished chord. So that's one cool way you can start to incorporate diminished chords in your playing to get that gospel flair. Doesn't it sound more gospel-y, jazzy? Pretty cool, right? And I'm always doing this on a dominant 7 chord. It's important to know. This movement, this dominant 7 flat 9 diminished thing only works where there are dominant 7 chord present. Now, with that also said, caveat, it's not going to work on every dominant 7 chord until you have to use your ear, because I'm sure you've seen I've played dominant 7 chord in places that I did not make it a flat 9. And that's because my ear told me it wouldn't work. Example, so, 'cause I know, that's 1. If I add the flat 9, personally for me it doesn't work. No. That flat 9 is not playing well with my ears, so I dropped it. Another place is where you see me doing these G7 to this A7, a sort of sharp 5, right? My augmented 7. I'm not making those flat 9 again because after testing them, it wasn't working with the ear. And so you have to realize that these theory that I'm explaining to you, it's not going to work on every place. It's not a sort of one size fit all wherever there's a dominant 7, you can make it into a flat 9. No. But there will be enough places where it works and you're going to hear that bluesy, jazzy, gospel-y feel that it brings. And you just take note of those places where it works and just keep reproducing it. Right? Now, I'm sure you see me do a lot of other goodies that you're like, what is that? I'm going to try to explain some of that because I don't want this video to be too long. So I start. 'Cause he lives. So that's a nice little descending passage because the vocalist has a single note. Live. So to create some cool harmonic shift, I'm just moving down to the major 7. To the dominant 7. Then I'm doing faced tomorrow So where does this G7 sharp 11 to this F7 sharp 5 come from? What is that? How did I know it could work? So here's a theory behind that. The relationship between this G chord, G altered chord, or G sharp 11, it's a tritone substitution. So I could have just played in D flat 7. I can face tomorrow. And it would have worked. So whenever you have a 1-7, the 1 chord is a dominant 7, you can oftentimes either substitute it fully with its tritone substitution, or you can play both chords. So in this case, I played both. I can face tomorrow. But the timing that I was doing it in, if I can face tomorrow. You can play around with the time and see what works for you. So all I'm doing is from that F7, sharp 11. And again, I can use the sharp 11 because that's just the root. So I can introduce it in the chord. And then same thing here, keeping that root. Now this chord, the dominant 3, I often like to refer to as the chromatic median. Oftentimes when you're going to 4, you can use the 3 chord as a dominant chord passing to get to 4 as well. And again, all of this stuff is covered in my course over at pianolessonwithwarren.com, the 7 types of gospel passing chord, where I talk about each of these different passing chord movement in detail, in depth, and I use dozens of song examples. So I'm not going to dive too far into that, but you can definitely check out that over at pianolessonwithwarren.com, currently running a free trial where you can also access that. So that's what's going there. Then we have because he lives, or I should say, because we talk about that stuff, he lives, my 6th movement. So it's a 6th. And then, fear is gone. This is a reharm chord, because most people just play the 5 here, but I play the flat 7 as a major 7, right? So we call it the flat 7 because C is the 7th tone of the scale, of the D flat major scale. So if I'm playing the B, the relationship to the key would be the flatted 7, and I'm playing this scale over it. It's B Lydian. And side note, you can always use a Lydian mode to run over a major 7 chord. How do I know that would work? I'm thinking D flat major scale, but then I'm altering it to make sure the B is a part of the scale. So if I just play the chord and I think, okay, D flat major scale with a B instead of a C, that's how I'm getting the Lydian. So initially when I'm playing, I'm not thinking about modes or Lydian mode, mixed Lydian and all that. I'm just thinking about the major scale and altering it to introduce the B because I'm playing a B chord. But then because I'm also an educator, the theory in me will say, well, I got to be able to name that scale because I'm going to need to be able to explain it to you guys on YouTube. And when I look at the makeup of the scale, I say, okay, it's the Lydian mode. And I have videos right here on YouTube that talks about modes. In fact, my live stream that I did last week is about modes. So you just go to the video page and you'll see it where I said scale to run over chords. So check that out. And I'll also link to that in the description down below. So that's what's going on there. Now that usually resolves me to this 5. And then I do, 'cause I know. This is just a dominant passing, a secondary dominant passing to take me to my minor 5, because I'm doing a setup to do a 2-5 passing to go to 4. But before that, I'm slipping in this 2 as a dominant 7. 'Cause I know he holds, right? But when I'm doing holds, I'm doing that tritone sub chromatic median thing again to go back to 4. Hey, woo, I know it's a lot. The fear And then I'm reharming this chord again. This time I'm playing a B7, not a B major 7. And in this case, you can play this scale over it. And this scale this time, this scale you can think of E major starting on B, which means we're playing a mixolydian, B mixolydian. Or if you want, you can play a mixolydian sharp 4 by introducing the F. So all of these things you can do, and again, all stems from just really understanding the modal thing, right? But then I didn't stop there. Then I go, life is, here I'm thinking a minor 6 in first inversion. Life is worth. So this is a C11, and it's a strange chord because I'm playing the E against the F. You hear the dissonance, but because of how I'm voicing it, spread out with the melody on the top, it buries that dissonance, right? So, and life is worth living just. Now, how do I know I could use that C chord right there? Well, because I know that my final destination chord is B flat. My living, right? That's where I'm trying to go. So I'm just thinking 2 5s, 2 5s, 2 5. So 2 5, actually 2 5 1 to my B flat, right? But instead of making this a minor or some form of minor 7 flat 5, I'm thinking, well, the melody's here, so how can I sort of stack the notes of these chords so there's not too much dissonance? This is the one I ended up with. And also like that idea of spreading it like that in the left hand. Now, if you can't do that spread of a 10th, you can just come up here and play the root in the 3rd, or even just a full triad, and it still gives you the same vibe. So, and life is worth, back to that chord, I'm living, and now I have my flat 9. Just, and here's just some little flair. So I drop on this 2 suspension, then I go inner voice chromatic movement, very common in gospel. Because, ooh, nice sounding chord, and resolve to a flat 9. He lives. One more time from the top. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, fear is gone. Because that's it. That's all I have for you guys today. I know I jam-packed a lot of stuff in this, and so, yeah, right? It's just going to take some time to process it, but I'm going to link up some videos down below that goes in more details of a lot of the things I talked about. For example, you see me extending my chords a lot, 13, this, flat 9, that, and if you're new to extensions and you want to get better at that, check out this video right here to talk about altered extensions in more details. Also, again, some links down below. I'm going to link to a PDF, 7 steps to naming any chord, and that's a free PDF download so you get better at being able to determine when you're playing a chord how to assign a name to it. And if you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell, right? Share this video also with someone who you believe it will help. And I'll catch you next week for another video. Take care.